Hey bug jar people. Today I want to do something a little different. I'm going to document the process of me coming up with an instrumental piece. I've been working on some instrumental pieces while we've been recording the second album, and I'm going to show you a little bit of insight into how that works. So this is going to be kind of complicated because I'm capturing the actual recording software on the computer while I'm filming as well. So this is going to be a lot of little small pieces, but we'll see how it turns out. So to start with, I created this little mandolin piece, and I'll show you. I've got my mandolin right here. Sometimes I'll just pick up the mandolin and or any instrument and just start making noise on it, and sometimes that ends up sounding like I could do something with it. And so one day I was just walking through the house with the mandolin, and I just happened to grab the strings like this and just have my hand in some random position and started coming up with a rhythm, right? So I started going. Well, that sounded kind of funky to me, so I ended up getting on my Cakewalk recording software and setting a tempo on a metronome with a bass drum and snare. And as you'll see right here on the screen, we've got the piece that I came up with, and it sounds like this with the metronome and snare going on. So that's what I've got right now. I'm probably going to try to add some bass to that and then see what goes on from there. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so I've made a little bit of progress. So I started to record a bass line, which I'll show you is something kind of like this. Okay, so the problem was that sounded really cool and went with the rhythm of the mandolin, but because of the way I had just kind of randomly held notes on the mandolin, I didn't really like the way it sounded together. So I'm going to show you on the screen how they fit together here. So I cut the green section here is the original mandolin part cut up into a loop that I've looped 4 times, and you can hear the bass part with it. Okay, so that sounds kind of cool rhythmically and it's kind of funky, but the issue is I'm playing an E on the bass, and I've tried E, D, A, and every which way, but the nature of that mandolin part was such that it just wasn't really in any particular key. And while it sounded cool on its own, once I started throwing another instrument in with it, it was, I don't know, it just sounded out of tune and I didn't really like it. So what I did is I took that same mandolin rhythm and I recorded a new track here, track 4, which is this sort of light orange yellowish color at the bottom. And I just played an E7 and a D7 when I switched to the D chord on the bass. And I think this is a little bit more pleasant overall. So see what you think. So that's where I'm at with it right now. I think the next thing I'm going to do is probably create an actual drum beat and not just use the metronome for the drums. And we'll see how that goes. So I'll update you soon, I hope. Okay, so I programmed some drum parts. I programmed a couple different sections and different little pieces. I'll probably add some fills and crashes in after this, but I'm listening back to it with all the other parts, and again, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to change things a little bit. The bass part, when I first recorded it, was just kind of a test part, and I really like the actual part that I'm playing, but there's sections where it doesn't really match up with the drums I created. So what I'm going to do is go back and re-record that part, kind of clean it up a little bit, and add it to the drums. There is the drum part, the first drum part. There's lots of different parts, but pretty basic, right? But then I've got a few other sections with fills like this. And then it changes to a bell. So I'm thinking that sounds pretty good so far, but I'm going to go back and tighten up the bass and see what we come up with. What I've done now is I have re-recorded the bass part to be a little bit more tight and matching with the drums, and I have chopped up the segments of the song such that I've got a few different little sections of loops that I can repeat at different points through the song. So at this point I've got kind of a verse structure and possibly like a B section, but I'm not sure how that's going to work just yet. But basically what I've got is about 30 to 45 seconds of material that can be used in the construction of the song. So I think that's where I'm going to end this video, but what I'm going to do is, instead of showing each individual piece, on the next time I talk about working on this piece, what I'm going to do is show a total change that has occurred, you know, like, oh, here's a whole new section. But I wanted to show you first how I work on each individual little piece. So let's take a look at this right quick. Okay, up here we have the original mandolin, which I've muted, the original bass, which I've muted, and the original mandolin loops in green that I created that we also have muted. So then here is the re-recorded mandolin with the correct chords, the re-recorded bass part cut into two segments that I can loop, and down here is the drum pieces, and there's lots of different segments of that. And then right here is a sample of what one of the actual loops looks like, are these little pieces. So each one of these different sections represent like a snare or a hi-hat or bass drum, etc. So let's just give this a short listen. Okay, so that's the basic structure that I'm going to build the rest of this song from, and we will see what happens.